Welcome, and thank you for playtesting SunFire Factions Against Fate. This video will explain the context and core rules of the game. Let's get started. In SunFire Factions Against Fate, you command one of 6 unique factions charged with protecting the city of Solamar from the SunFire, a scorching beam of energy from the heavens that threatens to burn the city to the ground. But surviving the SunFire is not your only challenge. You must also compete against the other factions to vie for control of the city and the support of its people. Can you save the city and win over the populace? Or will you be razed from history? Your keen mind and clever strategy will shape your fate. To win SunFire, Factions Against Fate, you must carefully balance 2 objectives: controlling the city of Solamar and protecting it from the SunFire. To control Solamar, you must accumulate 13 control points. These represent your faction's influence over the populace. Your faction gains influence in 2 ways: by constructing impressive buildings and contributing more to the defense of Solamar than your rival factions. Securing the city's survival is also necessary to win. You must balance generating control points with keeping the city shielded from the SunFire. Factions must risk their followers on daring scouting missions to collect ozone stones from outside the city. Pulled together, these stones can shield the city from the SunFire, but only for a time. How will you win Factions Against Fate? Will you construct magnificent buildings to inspire the populace? Or will you earn the respect of the people through your unrivaled defense of the city?
Now let's talk about how to play. Let's start with the board. When you begin the game, all that will be present is the large city tile that represents Solamar. As your scouts move from their starting district into the wilds outside the city, they reveal more terrain, represented by hexagonal tiles. Each tile has a terrain type and colors noted on it. These are important for later in the game. Plains tiles make up the ring immediately outside Solamar. Forest tiles are found 1 ring further out. Mountain tiles are the furthest ring from the city. Make sure you place the correct tiles as you build out the world. Each game of SunFire Factions Against Fate takes place over multiple rounds with 5 phases in each round. The first phase is the exploration phase, where you order your scouts out of Solamar in search of ozone stones. Your faction begins the game with 2 scouts and little influence over the populace, only 3 control points. Your scouts may explore from 1 tile to an adjacent tile each turn. The number of ozone stones your scouts harvest is based on the tile they occupy at the end of the exploration phase. Plains yield 1 ozone stone, forests 2, and mountains 3. But be careful, the farther you venture from the city, the more likely your scouts will be caught under the SunFire. And there are other challenges you will face. While the city is peaceful, there is no such promise in the wilderness. Scouts of different factions that occupy the same tile at the end of the phase skirmish for control of the terrain. Each faction rolls to determine their martial prowess, applies their unique faction bonus, and reinforcement bonuses for any friendly scouts on adjacent tiles. The faction with the highest value after rolling and applying all bonuses wins. To the victor go the spoils. The winning scout claims the ozone stones of both scouts. The losing scout is forced to retreat to an adjacent tile of the victor's choosing. You command your scouts during the exploration phase. Will you boldly venture out to harvest mountains for the richest cache of ozone stones? Or stick to the safer plains surrounding the city? Or will you simply take what you need from the other factions? The second phase is the donation phase. This is where you must decide how your faction will invest your hard-earned ozone stones. Solamar can be protected from the SunFire by a device that creates a magical shield over the city, using ozone stones as fuel, consuming them in the process. Donate ozone stones to fuel the device to ensure Solamar survives the SunFire. Decide how many ozone stones you want to donate by choosing donation cards that add up to that value and place them face down in front of you. If you choose to invest in the city, the populace will invest in you. The faction that donates the most will gain control points in the reward phase. But greed is obvious too. The faction that donates the least will lose a control point. Remember, whatever you do has a cost. Any ozone stones your faction donates cannot be used in the next phase. Will you donate to the defense of Solamar, or hold back your resources to recruit more followers and enrich your faction? After you see to the city's safety, you must choose how to spend what remains of your ozone stones during the construction phase. Training new scouts from your faction costs 2 ozone stones. They begin in your starting zone and can venture out the next turn. A scout can build a settlement on a tile that they occupy for 1 ozone stone. Settlements gather 1 ozone stone each turn at the end of the exploration phase and allow your scouts to pass over the tile without using their movement. A scout can also construct a building on a tile for 3 ozone stones. Buildings generate a control point each turn when a scout occupies a tile with a building during the reward phase. Remember, ozone stones used during the construction phase go to the bank, not the donation bin. Choose your investments carefully. Everything is destroyed when struck by the SunFire. An investment 1 turn may not survive to the next. The SunFire phase is where factions' preparations and the shield protecting Solamar are put to the test. A searing bolt of energy descends from the heavens on Solamar. Each faction reveals their donation cards and pools their donated ozone stones in the donation bin. Players check their faction cards to see if the number of ozone stones in the donation bin is sufficient to shield Solamar from the SunFire for that round. Then a player rolls the burn die. If Solamar is not fully shielded, the number on the die denotes the district that is struck by the SunFire. All tiles containing the color on the die outside the city are struck by the SunFire, regardless of if the city is shielded or not. All scouts, settlements, and buildings on these tiles and districts are destroyed. If there are excess ozone stones in the donation bin following the SunFire, they carry over to the next round. All other ozone stones in the bin are removed and placed in the bank. Any district struck by the SunFire receives a burn marker. If the SunFire strikes a district twice, the city is destroyed, the game is over, and all players lose. Assuming you survive the SunFire, the last phase of each round is the rewards phase. This is where factions' influence grows or wanes. During the rewards phase, factions gain or lose control points based on donations. The faction or factions that donated the most ozone stones earns 1 control point per burn roll. The factions or factions that donated the least ozone stones lose 1 control point regardless of the number of burn rolls. For every building with a scout on it on the same tile, a faction gains 1 control point. The game ends once a faction reaches 13 control points, or if Solamar is destroyed by the SunFire. Factions are eliminated from the game if they have 0 or fewer control points at the end of the rewards phase.
After the rewards phase, the round is over. The next round begins. Starting in round 2, factions may choose to spend control points at the beginning of the exploration phase to recruit an additional scouts at a cost of 1 control point per scout. As the game goes on, the intensity of the SunFire increases. Starting round 4, players roll 2 burns rolls during the Sunfire phase, and beginning round 7, players roll 3 burn rolls. Each additional burn roll increases the number of ozone stones required to shield Solamar. You must race the other factions to gain control of the city before time runs out, and the Sunfire burns Solamar from existence. Will you succeed and write your own history, or will you fail and be consigned to it? Those are the core rules for Sunfire, factions against fate. We hope you enjoy playing the game. Please leave feedback and take a look at the collectibles we've brought to Origins as a token of our thanks for playing.